The Space Shuttle Challenger carried the first African-American into space. Former US Air Force pilot Guyan Bluford would make 4 trips into space between 1983 and 1992 and log 688 hours in space. A Korean Airlines Boeing 747 en route from Anchorage, Alaska to Seoul drifted into Soviet airspace due to a navigational error and was shot down by Soviet jet fighters, killing all 269 aboard, including US Representative Larry McDonald of Georgia. A diplomatic incident ensued as accusations flew back and forth, with the Kremlin initially insisting nothing had happened at all, then claiming that the plane had been on a spying mission. The incident came at a time of heightened tension in the Cold War and threatened to become a second Cuban Missile Crisis at times. And the F1 circus arrived at the historic Monza circuit for what was traditionally the end of the European season, though this year that honour would belong to Brands Hatch. Ferrari's win from a non-promising start at Zandvoort had galvanised the locals, and the track was packed from Friday practice onwards as the flag-waving fans came to see their Scarlet Idols perform. Not that the others were going to let them have it easy. The Brabham team had finally broken the Ferrari pole streak in Holland and were here using the same tweaked engine with larger turbos. Bernie Ecclestone and his team had been distinctly unpopular in Italy ever since he was blamed by the Tifosi for the Italian Grand Prix being taken away from Monza in 1980, never mind that the eventual result was the addition of the San Marino race. So when Friday's qualifying ended with Piquet and Patrese first and second, the fans were not happy. As Ricciardo had found out earlier in the year at Imola, simply being Italian doesn't get you a pass, especially if you're driving for one of Ferrari's chief rivals. Things improved for the Tifosi early on Saturday qualifying when Tambay and Arnoux both beat Piquet's time, but Patrese went out and spoiled the Ferrari party by pipping both of them to pole to the tune of about half a second. Piquet could only manage 4th in the end, which was some comfort to the fans, with the equally hated Prost 5th alongside De Cesaris' Alfa Romeo. Cheever and De Angelis made up row 4, with Winkelhock and Baldi rounding out the top 10. With Watson now also in a McLaren tag, albeit a makeshift conversion of his old car pending a fully new chassis, Rosberg was once again best of the non-turbos, but now that meant 16th place. His teammate Jacques Laffite, though, had spent much of the session doing tyre tests for Goodyear and hadn't been able to get enough good laps in to even qualify. He joined Bozell and Aitchison, with Sullivan making it onto the grid in 22nd at the last minute of Saturday's session. John and Cecotto brought up the rear amid news that Teddy Yip had decided to part ways with the team that bore his name, and unless a new source of cash was found, the Theodore Ensign team looked like it was running its last races. The destinations of its drivers proved a talking point over the weekend, with the talented Guerrero rumoured to be on his way to Lotus to replace Mansell, known not to be highly rated by team boss Peter Waugh. The so-called silly season was, as usual, in full swing by Monza, with lots of rumours flying around about driver-team-engine combinations for 1984, with Alboreto still favoured for Ferrari, but now also rumoured to be replacing Watson at McLaren, and Jarrier's place at Ligier under threat from Alan Jones. Piquet, meanwhile, was reported to have rejected offers from Renault and Ferrari to stay at Brabham, though nothing has been officially announced about Brabham's driver lineup for next year. Overnight, some fans got onto the track and scrawled obscenities on Piquet and Prost's grid slot, and encouragement on those of Tambay, Arnoux and De Cesaris. Nothing at all for Patrese, good or bad. The circuit organisers cleaned off the bad stuff, left the good stuff, so the Tifosi had to be content with merely jeering and whistling at anything not painted red as the cars came out onto the grid and got ready for the race. The green light went on, and 26 cars tore off the grid, with Cheever driving through the middle between the Ferraris, which also lost out to Piquet, going round the outside, to slot in second behind Patrese. As they went through the first chicane, it was Patrese, Piquet, Tambay, Arnoux, Cheever, De Cesaris and Prost, and the Brabhams were already pulling out a lead from the Ferraris by the end of lap 1. Piquet was right up behind his Italian teammate and looking to get by, while Arnoux got past his own teammate on lap 2, with Cheever following through. De Cesaris tried it too, but braked way too late and ended up in the gravel trap at the first chicane, nearly taking Prost out in the process. And then suddenly the Tifosi erupted in cheers as clouds of smoke began issuing from the back of Patrese's car. The luckless Italian was jeered all the way back to the pits as Piquet and the others swept past. So Piquet, who now turned his boost down to conserve the engine, led from Arnoux, who had Cheever hanging on close behind, with Tambay an increasingly distant 4th and pursued by Prost and De Angelis. Alfa Romeo's bad luck at their home race continued when Mauro Baldi's engine let go in spectacular fashion on lap 5, and Johansson was also out with a faulty distributor arm. He'd blown 3 engines so far this weekend, so maybe he was just glad of a change. Lauda had been to the pits too with a mysterious electrical problem, but was back out running as the team tried to diagnose it and was soon lapped by Piquet. The race had soon settled down into a pattern with little changing other than Prost losing 5th to De Angelis on lap 10 and continuing to drop back. The Lotus driver was on a charge himself and soon caught Tambay, while Watson's first turbo race came to a premature end on lap 3 when his electrics packed up while he was running 7th. While the cameras were watching Watty climb out, De Angelis passed Tambay for 4th and set off in pursuit of the Arnoux-Cheever battle, some 10 seconds up the road. A few laps later, Tambay engaged in a bit of impromptu rallying, but didn't seem to suffer any ill effects or even lose a place. A lap or two later, Cheever was in for his first planned stop, a decent 11.5 seconds, and he was followed in by De Angelis. Arnoux lost position to Prost when he pitted, but the next lap he blasted straight past his old rival as Prost spluttered in for a pit stop. He went back out, but not for very long. To applause from the stands, he was clearly slow getting going and pulled in to retire with a dead turbocharger on the next lap. Arnoux and Cheever had resumed their battle over second as Lauda came into the pits, for a planned stop this time, only for his motor to die as he pulled away, leaving him stranded in front of the Brabham pit. The cameras cut away just before they could see Bernie Eccleston join his team to push the stricken McLaren out of the way, as they were expecting Piquet in at any moment. If that was a distraction, it didn't faze them as they turned the leading car around in a cracking 10.15 seconds without losing the lead. So with the pit stops shaken out, it was Piquet, then Arnoux and Cheever. Tambay had got back ahead of De Angelis during the stops, and 6th and 7th were now Warwick and Winkelhock, until the ATS rolled to a stop with an exhaust problem on lap 35, which put Mansell up into 7th, pursued by Giacomelli. And that was pretty much it for drama, as the last 20 laps or so played out without any major surprises. Nelson Piquet took Brabham BMW's first win on European soil and his second of the year after the season opener. Arnoux took second place and Cheever third. Tambay was 4th. De Angelis kept a spluttering Lotus on the road for his first points of the year in 5th, and Warwick picked up the last point in 6th. It was the first time since 1967 that no Ford Cosworth-powered car had finished in the points. As the Italian fans stormed the track as they want to do, there were still cars racing, and 7th-placed Mansell slowed to avoid them, which let a less compunctious Giacomelli pass just before the line, weaving between spectators at 170 miles an hour. A livid Mansell pulled a U-turn on track and drove into the pit lane by the exit road, but his remonstrations came to nothing. His 8th place stood. So Alain Prost, who seemed to have the championship sewn up at mid-season, now held a lead of just 2 points over his old friend Arnoux, with Piquet 3 points behind René. Tambay was looking like an outside prospect at this point, but you just never know in Formula 1. With just 2 races to go, it looked like for the 3rd year running, it was all going to come down to the last race.